this is one that I see all too often, that men, whether they're conscious of this or not, they have a big misconception that women kind of like these nice guys, right? They listen too much to what women say about what they're truly attracted to, and when you get to learn and when you get to know women a lot more, you begin to understand that there is a gap in between what they say that they're attracted to and what they're actually attracted to, or rather, what they're attracted to and what they respond to and what they say in which they would respond to, right? So, for example, women don't necessarily like nice guys, but they'll tell you and they'll tell you and tell other people that that's a type of man that they want. They want a man who's nice, who's going to do this, who's going to do this, and then you see the type of men that they actually go for, and those type of men are they're not necessarily the same men that they say that they want. They're more of the bad boys. Maybe they're more of the ones that are more defiant. Maybe they don't treat them as good as they say that they want to be treated. But for whatever reason, those men still end up in a favorable position, right? So that's something that I want to be very, very clear with is if you're trying to play this nice guy role, it's not going to work out as good as it could. And it's not going to work out as good as you think it should go. And that right there is one of the most humbling moments in the dating experience for a lot of men is they try to listen exactly to what women say. They go out in the world and try to act that out, and then they're wondering why women do not respond to that, even though that's exactly what they say. And it's because that's just not what they respond to, right? So if you want a woman to respond to you, I'm not saying do and be a bad person. When I say a bad boy, I'm not saying that. The way in which I perceive a bad boy in that certain instance is they're not afraid to be themselves. I feel like a lot of men when they're in this nice guy role, they they're kind of a filtered version of themselves, right? I feel like a lot of those men that are the bad boys, they're more honest, they're more upfront, they're more raw when it comes to their a way in which they would handle a woman. And some of those men that are trying to take that nice guy role, those bad boys do things that those nice guys would never think to do because they don't think it would work in their favor. When in reality, it actually would. So that's what I will say for sure. How do you go from okay, how do you go from being a nice guy to an evil man or a bad guy? I don't necessarily think women like evil men or bad guys particularly. I think they like the man that has experience, and the way in which that manifests, for example, is the bad boy is kind of like it's just a little bit more defiant. It makes them think a little bit more, right? And it's not as predictable and practical as the nice guy. I think that's going to define the bad boy archetype, right? That's why women are this is a very, very rare instance, but that's why women are drawn to the people that are like criminals and things like that. They have some type of draw to them. I'm not saying that's always the case with evil men or bad men, but at the same time, I think it's very, very interesting to observe that that is part of how women think, right? They want a guy who's a little bit more defiant, who's willing to break the rule. And when I say break the rule, I mean act in a way that isn't conventionally thought of, right? Or I'm gonna try to give you an example. For example, I'll just say this: a nice guy, if a woman asks for his opinion, right? Regardless of what she wears, how do I look? The nice guy's always going to say, "Oh, you look so beautiful. You look wonderful," right? But the bad boy is going to be like, "Yeah, this one's all right." Now that doesn't make him a bad person. He's just a more raw version and an honest version of himself, right? And I think that is the difference. That is the type of energy that women, whether they want like to admit it or not, that's exactly what they want, right? And like I said, that's exactly what they respond to. How do I know that? Because I do it myself. I act that way, and I have learned to act just my rawest version of myself, and that is perceived as like more rebellious or more. I'm not gonna say bad. I wouldn't even consider it bad, but it's just different. It's not what they're used to, and if it's not what they're used to, then you can get into a different then you get into a different area of the woman's brain where it's just like, okay, well, this guy's gonna be like this, and this guy's gonna be like this. Why is he like this? Why is he not like every other man that I've talked to? And that makes them interested. Getting into the next one, and I'll respond to some of these comments real quick. This is going to be another one that's one of the most interesting ones of the entire podcast. All right, let me read some of these comments. Ain't that the truth? Be a man, act like you don't care. Oh yeah, there you go. So if women like bad guys aren't criminals considered evil? how does it so does this mean I can be evil and the women will be like me more? Not necessarily. Like I said, I don't think women like bad. I don't think women like bad characters. I think women like it's like this. I think women's women's ultimate fantasy is this. It's the beauty and the beast. So for example, this is something that I've heard time and time again. I think it's very very interesting. They like the man that has the capacity for violence, right? The capacity for anger, right? But who has it under control. And that is the bad boy in essence. So like for example, they like men who are big and strong, but who are nice and gentle to them, right? They don't like the big and strong guy that's just gonna fucking get in a fight with any person just for any reason, right? That's dangerous, and that's not necessarily something that they're enticed into, right? But they're enticed to taming a beast. That is the woman's ultimate fantasy is how can I tame this guy? That's exactly what they think in their mind, right? And when I say tame, I mean like how can I civilize this guy? How can I make him a person who is a good man of character in a way in which he'll be the father of my children. That is exactly what women want. So I don't think being evil or being a criminal is going to be the route that you need to go to in order to attract women. I don't think that at all. But what I do think is you need to be a person who's capable of doing things but refuses to do them, right? Make the exception. So for example, right, one of these bad guy archetypes or bad boy archetypes, this is going to be the man who can sleep with a lot of women but doesn't, right? That is that is the bad boy. The bad boy can do those things, but he refuses and he decides to not do that. And that is that tame version that that woman will see in you and be like, "Ah, I like that." Right? Unconsciously or consciously. They're going to respond better to guys. For example, right? The guy who can sleep with a lot of women versus the guy who can't sleep with a lot of women, right? They're going to be more they might not be they'll sleep with the same amount of women, maybe once a month, right? But the bad guy who can sleep with a lot of women is going to be so much more appealing as opposed to the guy who really can't get that many women. If that makes any sense, right? That is just an example of the bad boy versus the nice guy. But yeah, hopefully that makes some sense.